At this time, I would like to introduce your guest speaker. He was our 2013 Teacher of the Year and has been a Shark for 4 years. He is a dedicated individual and teaches his subject with passion. Please give a round of applause to Mr. Ian Wald.
Good evening. My name is Mr. Wald. I teach digital video production here at Nature Coast. After being selected as this year's Teacher of the Year, the thought that lingered in my mind is how honored I was to be recognized in such high regard by our students, faculty, and staff. The very next morning, still riding the high of being chosen, my parking spot neighbor, Miss Ferlita, and I greeted each other in the morning as we often do. It was right then and there she congratulated me and then promptly reminded me I had to speak tonight. A simple good morning would have been fine. Nevertheless, I'm excited to say a few words to this graduating class. As many of you know, I'm a huge Steve Jobs and Apple fan. I remembered from reading his autobiography and seeing it all over YouTube that Steve Jobs gave one of the greatest commencement addresses of all time, so I looked there to get some ideas on how to set mine up. What I found was that he simply told a few short stories that had a moral or a bit of advice built in, and seeing as Steve Jobs and Apple have never done me wrong, I will do the same. Once upon a time in a faraway land, I too went to high school. I'd say the name of that school, but I don't know if I'm currently allowed to. I really enjoyed playing sports, and after a few years of playing football, I got pretty good at it. Senior year was starting, and offers from different schools had been coming in for me to go play football for this team or that team. This was exciting stuff, and at the time, there was nothing I would rather do than play football 24/7 for the rest of my life. You see, though, these schools, they weren't in Florida. In fact, even if they were, none of them were the University of South Florida. USF is where my best friends, I'm talking my boys, the guys I've been hanging out with every day since elementary school, and my current girlfriend of about a year were going to go to school in the next fall. So you can see I was faced with a tough decision, to follow my dreams and passion elsewhere, or follow my friends and a girl, and let's be honest, it was really about the girl. So my head coach asked me, what do you want me to tell these schools that are calling? I told him, tell them thank you for the offer, but I've decided to take my chances walking on at USF and will be attending there in the fall. To make a long story short, I ended up playing on the USF football team for a summer before I decided to focus on academics. I spent 4 years studying athletic training in the College of Medicine and made memories along the way with my best friends. In 2009, I graduated, and in the stands supporting me was the same girl I began the journey with. 2 years later, I married her. So it turns out that following my heart was the best decision I ever made. My second story will remind you of the theme of Jim Carrey's Yes Man, but is something I've always done, and it seems to work for me. Call it karma, call it the golden rule, call it altruism, I don't know, but I firmly believe it's why I stand before you here tonight. Halfway through college, once I finished all my prerequisites, I was still undecided on what I wanted to do for a career. I loved sports and had an interest for medicine, so I decided to apply for the athletic training program. I really enjoyed it and loved treating and caring for athletes of various teams. But once I graduated, after 2,000 plus hours of internship, I wasn't entirely sure it was something I wanted to do for a career. So there I was, lost, undecided, and unsure of what lay ahead. Earlier on in high school, I was very selfish, immature, and only concerned with the now. I know that doesn't sound like you. But as I matured with influence from my friends, mentors, coaches, and eventually my girlfriend, I began to be more compassionate towards others. I developed a habit of saying yes to anything anyone asked me to do. A month before my college graduation, my girlfriend's mother, who was a teacher at Nature Coast at the time, was working on creating a documentary with one of her classes. They had their research, they had their story arc, they had their footage, and they knew exactly what they wanted their documentary to be edited like. What they didn't have was the editing ability to create what they so clearly envisioned. Knowing that I had a little bit of experience with filmmaking, she asked me if I'd be willing to come and help out a bit. Clearly, based on where the story is heading, I said yes. I began volunteering in her class on weekdays, and as the deadline approached, even began working with them on weekends. I was having a blast interacting, teaching, and learning from the high school students. 1 month and nearly 100 hours of work later, the documentary premiered, and the audience really enjoyed what the students had created. The current principal at the time came to thank me for my help, and in the midst of our conversation, she learned I was fresh out of college with no direct plans for the future. So she told me that if I could pass a series of tests, that there was an opening in the TV production program the following year. Now, what I've neglected to mention in this story is even though I enjoyed sports and was interested in medicine, My hobby and real passion was filmmaking. So over the summer, I worked hard to pass the tests and get all of my ducks in a row for the teaching position. The principal had changed, but the new principal, Miss Noyes, was gracious enough to hire me and give me the opportunity to merge my old passion of filmmaking with my new passion of teaching, and I haven't looked back since, and I'm extremely thankful. I can go on to tell you many other stories where saying yes opened a door for me to an opportunity I didn't even think was possible. The age-old saying, you reap what you sow, is almost always used negatively, but with a positive spin, it's absolutely true as well. Sometimes the reward is immediate, sometimes it doesn't show itself for a while. Sometimes it's tangible, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the reward may be the journey itself, and sometimes it may be a simple thank you or a smile that says you made the difference. But I can tell you this, saying yes to helping others has never steered me wrong. Now, the rule of threes states that I need to tell you one more story. So when I sat down to write this, I asked my close family and friends for their favorite stories about me. My sister-in-law told me she likes the one where on the first day of middle school, I said the wrong thing to an 8th grader and he picked me up by my backpack straps and slammed me against the wall. And my mom really likes to remind people that when I was a little kid, when she asked me what I wanted to be, I told her a pizza maker, like Michelangelo, because I was obsessed with the Ninja Turtles. Side note, I became a pizza maker when I was in high school. But I couldn't tie a moral or a piece of advice to either one of those stories. Then, miraculously, a story fell right into my lap about 2 weeks ago. Stop me if you've heard this one before. It was a hot spring Saturday afternoon. I was helping the senior class of 2013 film their annual lip dub when we may or may not have gotten a little carried away with our school spirit. I'd go on to finish the story, but the rest has been censored due to a parking violation. Moral of that story, I'm proud to be a shark. I want to leave you with a quote recalled by Northland College principal John Tapine from a judge that regularly dealt with youth. This went viral about a year ago, but I love its directness and honesty. The world does not owe you a living. You owe the world something. You owe it your time, energy, and talent so that no one will be at war and sickness and lonely again. In other words, grow up, stop being a crybaby, get out of your dream world, and develop a backbone, not a wishbone. Start behaving like a responsible person. You are important and you are needed. It's too late to sit around and wait for somebody to do something someday. Someday is now, and that somebody is you. Thank you, God bless, and good night.